Hey everybody, Sammy here for another episode of Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. We are talking today about how to use your existing audience to promote for you, to share about what you're doing, to get in front of new audiences, to kind of be another voice, and kind of utilize them as little influencers for your nonprofit or organization. And we're talking about it in a very specific way in that how do you set up that foundation in order to be able to get the best bang for your buck, if you will, or how do you make it easy for your audience to share? And part of that is creating this promo kit that we are going to talk about as we get into this episode. It's a very tangible, easy, thing that you can put together, thing that you can create, that you can use time and time again, that will help your audience know what to say, how to say it, what are the images, all that good stuff. So we're going to jump into that. And my guest today to talk through this with us is Lilly Stairs. Lilly is recognized as a leading voice in a rapidly growing patient engagement field, having built award-winning patient ambassador programs and powerful awareness campaigns that united patients and industry. She has served as an advocate for over a decade, transitioning into patient advocacy after she was diagnosed with multiple autoimmune diseases. Lilly is the founder and principal at Patient Authentic, where she helps healthcare companies authentically engage with patients and build movements to drive brand awareness and product adoption. Prior to founding Patient Authentic, Lilly served as the head of client relations at Savvy Cooperative and led patient advocacy at Clara Health, where she conceived and executed patient engagement strategy and ensured the patient voice remained firmly at the center of the company. She has also served in communications and advocacy roles across industry, from the Institute for Healthcare Improvement to Mass Bio. Lilly regularly shares her experience and expertise via speaking engagements from conferences to Capitol Hill, and also serves as a board member for the American Autoimmune-Related Diseases Association, ARDA, and is a lead patient advisor to several major pharmaceutical companies. We have an awesome conversation in this episode about how to really leverage the nonprofit side, the for-profit side, all of it to really amplify your voice, get in front of new audiences, complete your mission, raise more money, all of the things. And it's a great episode. So she also talks about how we can kind of up level once we've got that initial outreach kind of pulled together in that promo kit. So I hope that you'll enjoy this episode, but before we get into it, it is brought to you by our 9 ways for nonprofits to make more money online, our guide that we've created to help get you started or keep pushing forward as you raise more funds using your website or online strategies. So you can check that out at thefirstclick.net/fundraise. Download the guide. Don't do all 9 at once, but download the guide, check it out, and see what makes sense for you and what your organization can implement quickly. But with that, let's get to the episode. You're listening to the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell-Mulhern, and each week I bring you tips from myself and other experts, as well as hot seats with small business owners and entrepreneurs to demystify digital marketing and get you on your way to generating more leads and growing your business. Hi, Lilly. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Sammy. I am so thrilled to be here.
Yeah. Well, and so we're talking today about social media and how you can leverage your existing base to kind of really amplify your voice. And so I just kind of wanted to start with, why do you think that even getting on social media for a nonprofit can be such a powerful tool?
Yeah, I think it's honestly mission critical in this day and age to be on social media. There are so many people from all walks of life who are on social media, who are looking to follow causes that they care about. And I've personally come across a lot of nonprofits via social media. I think that's honestly how I learn about new ones that I haven't heard of before. And so I think it's a really phenomenal way to expand your reach and awareness about your organization.
And why do you think it is that so many nonprofit organizations, I just feel like that hesitation, like either we don't have the staff or we don't know what to say or we don't know how to do it. Like, why do you think that is?
Yeah, I do. I agree. I think it's often a bandwidth issue because social media can feel overwhelming. There's so many platforms and it can feel like, oh God, I don't even know where to start. And do I need to be on all of the platforms? And I think that a way to combat that is to start small and get yourself up and running on one platform. And there are a lot of resources out there. And Sammy, I'm sure you've developed some of these already that walk through sort of the demographics that you can expect to see on different platforms. And so, if you're looking to reach more of the baby boomer generation and moms and dads and grandparents, Facebook's a really great place to be. But if you're trying to reach Gen Z, maybe you want to be on Instagram or TikTok. So those are some of the different, and pick one, start in one vertical and commit to posting, once a day or a couple times a week. But I think it's a bandwidth issue and I think it's an intimidation issue, but there's nothing to be afraid of. It's you just showcasing who you are on a different platform and leveraging the messaging you've already developed in a new way.
Yeah. And I agree with that 100%, start with one, start small. And I also think that with any brand marketing, you're trying to get your raving fans to amplify your voice. You're trying to get customers of yours to, engage and interact. But I almost feel like nonprofits have it easier because they already have donors and volunteers and board members, and then the population that they serve. Like, you have a much more built-in audience that can immediately start talking about you.
Yes, you're 100% correct. And that's a great point, actually. I would recommend, if you're not on social media, to reach out to your existing superstar donors and volunteers and ask them what social media channels they're using the most, because that'll give you a good sense of where you should be starting. But absolutely, once you announce that you're going on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever it might be, they're going to be excited to follow you. And then they're likely going to share it with their audience and say, hey, this nonprofit I volunteer for is on Facebook. Check us out and give us a like and follow along with what we're doing.
Yeah. And we did an episode a couple back, and I'll make sure to link it in the show notes, talking about how you can run fundraisers on Facebook, which is also a great tool to use. But what we're really going to hone in on today, and what I'm excited about, is then, you have to ask people to do things, right? You can't, like you just said, you need to ask your superstar board member, your superstar volunteer, like, can you share this? And so, one great way is to kind of create your own promo kit or promo guide to make it really easy for people to access creatives, graphics, language, all that stuff, right?
Absolutely. And here's the thing, and you said it, you've got to make it easy, because there's so much information that's coming at everybody in this day and age. And there's so many things that people can post about. And quite frankly, a lot of us are kind of lazy. We want somebody to just, if somebody has a pre-composed tweet for me or a pre-composed social media post for me to share, I am 10 times more likely to share that than if they just ask me to have to, oh, would you mind sharing this? But they don't give me any context and I have to take the time to write something up. And so that's where these promo kits can be a real lifesaver. It takes a little bit of work up front, but once it's done, you'll see people amplifying your message and whatever you're trying to get out there into the world.
And it helps you control the message you are trying to get out there, right? And your branding.
Yes, that's a great point, because if you don't give people direction, sometimes they may say something that you don't want them to say. There could be confusion about, some sort of service that you offer, and they may frame it a different way than you would like them to frame it. So it gives you total control over the messaging.
So let's talk about, because you mentioned it's a little bit of work up front. So let's talk about what kinds of, like, if you were going to start to put a promo kit together to distribute to people, what kinds of things might you want to start to think about to put in there?
Yeah, great question. And I look at a promo kit, there's sort of two tracks that you can go down. You can have one overarching promo kit that I recommend everybody has. And that's just about your organization. That's the bread and butter of what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and how you're effective in what you do and how you're making an impact. And so that, again, that's overarching about your organization. There's also the track that where you can go, where you can make a promo kit for a specific campaign you're working on, and both will have similar elements. We can get into the campaign piece in a moment, but I'd like to first start by focusing on this core promo kit. And this is where you're going to have everything in one place. I usually think about it as being maybe in a PowerPoint slide deck or a PDF document. And what you're going to have in here is one, I like to recommend having a unifying hashtag. So if you haven't come up with a hashtag for your organization yet, or the work that you do, I think that's a great way to, one, track what type of posts are coming up about your organization on social media, and really coalesce everyone around one message. Again, that consistency is key.
Now with that hashtag, so you would have your hashtag that's just your, your organization name. So you're talking about a separate hashtag that is tied to the cause, that is, separate from your business name.
Yeah, I think that can be really powerful. And so I'll give you an example here. At an organization that I work for, Clara Health, which is a company that works to connect patients with clinical trials, we have the hashtag Patients Have Power. And this has become a really, really powerful connect to the Clara brand. People inherently associate Patients Have Power with Clara, which is the exact message that we want to be associated with the brand. And so it can be a great way to really, again, instill that consistency and help people associate you with a key message you're trying to communicate. And so, other hashtags I've seen are, in a campaign that I did, the 50 Cents for 50 Million campaign, that was on behalf of the American Autoimmune Disease Association, the organization that I currently sit on the board of. And all proceeds were going to ARDA, but there are 50 million Americans who are living with autoimmune diseases. And so we were running a fundraising campaign and wanted to drive home the message that there are 50 million Americans living with autoimmune diseases. So we'd like to encourage you to donate. So that was the hashtag 50 Cents for 50 Million.
That's great. I love how simple that is. And it's still really like you get it right away.
Get it. Yeah, exactly. And so that's what you want to go for. And it can take some time to come up with a hashtag. You're not going to sit down. More likely than not, you're not going to sit down and come up with one in 10 minutes. It's usually something that honestly can take weeks. You want to just start, it wants to be in the back of your head, and it might come out when you're thinking about it, when you're going on a walk or doing something else. But you definitely want it to tie back to who your organization is. And if you have, there's this exercise called the 6-word reason exercise that I love. It comes from telling your story to make a difference. It's a book, and I'll send it to you so you can link to it in the show notes. But it challenges you to come up with your 6-word reason. Share why you do what you do in 6 words. And that's challenging, right? Because 6 words, it's not a lot. But it's a good way to get yourself to think in those sort of pithy, short, hashtag-like mindset. And so that can be a good starting point. And I will send that to you so that we can link to it. Yeah. And I encourage folks to start there as you're trying to come up with a hashtag.
Well, and the other thing that I love to do with, when I'm working with clients on like their website tagline and things like that is I say, as you start, and I know we're going to get into some more of this copy stuff, but as you start to write things for your campaign or for your branding, you'll start to notice the same phrases that you use over and over again that you don't even realize that you're using to talk about your organization. And so sometimes just by writing, you'll trigger something.
Yes.
So I agree with you. Do the hashtag last. Don't have that be the thing that you start with, because you'll probably get inspired by creating all the rest of the things that are going in this promo kit.
Yes, exactly. So, so you've got the unifying hashtag. And again, that could really pop up at any time while you're working on this. But you also want to include the core messaging. So this is upfront, your boilerplate, who your organization is. And you should always include in there why you exist and the impact that you're making, and make that really clear. This is why you're so special. And then I recommend putting in a couple of other elements. And so this would include your social media handles. So where they can find you, where they can follow you.
Right, because we're making it easy. We don't want them to have to search for you.
Exactly. And if you can link directly in there, that's great too. So just link it all up. So all they have to do is click once to open it and then follow you. And then you also want to include some pre-composed social media messages. And you want those to just capture who your organization is, and if you have any calls to action. So you could have, let's say, and you also want to make sure that these fit the character limits. So on Twitter, there's a certain number of characters that you can use in a tweet. And so you want to make sure that you have that all figured out so that when the person goes to copy and paste, they don't have to edit it at all. They can literally just copy, paste, and post, and it's out there. And on these tweets, I would say a couple of the different types of tweets. I say tweets. I'm big on Twitter. That's like my primary platform. I would say I use a lot, but this could apply to Instagram, Facebook. You want to have one that's just sort of a general about your organization. And then I would say you want to have a couple that are calls to action. So if donating is something you want people to do, having a tweet or a post about a call to action, how they can donate and why they should donate. Having, if they can volunteer, having one tweet about ways you can volunteer. I would also say trying to actually have stories of the people you've impacted, or the whatever it might be, or communities you've impacted, having some case studies that highlight the work that you've been able to achieve. That's always really effective. And so those are the types of posts that I would have in there. And I would say 5 to 10 is a good number. And once you've done it for one platform, you can pretty much do the same thing for the rest. It's just, again, a matter of some slight tweaks and copy and pasting. And I also recommend including graphics with some of them where possible, because graphics just tend to get more engagement on social media.
So I have a couple of questions around this. First one is, so even if you're not on all of the platforms, it's still good to put content together and images together for all the platforms, because like if they may not be on Twitter, but maybe, that doesn't mean that there isn't still an audience for them if people are going to share their stuff on Twitter.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great point. Definitely have something for every social platform.
Okay. And then for some of the other platforms like TikTok or even Instagram, with Instagram stories that are a little bit more maybe video centric, could you just put ideas and prompts like, hey, this might be a great topic to talk about. Here's the words you can say.
Yes, brilliant. Love that. And so having even a little like a mini script for a video. So one thing I also recommend doing if you wanted something, again, that's a little bit more visual, that hashtag that you come up with, you can put that onto a, 8.5 by 11 paper in a PDF and have it, design it however you want the hashtag to look. And you can ask people to print that out at home and then take a picture holding up the sign.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've done in past campaigns that's been really effective and people have been excited to do. And we ended up with a lot of, photos of everybody holding up this sign with our hashtag, which was really powerful. And the other thing I'll recommend from a graphic standpoint is using online tools like a Canva. Those are a really great resource for people who are not graphic design inclined, or if you don't have a graphic designer on staff. It's a free tool. It automatically has all of the social media dimensions for whatever you want to post, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. And they have some templates in there that you can use. And so if you want to put together some of your own graphics, that's a good place to start for those who maybe don't have the background in design.
Yeah, Canva's awesome. I use it all the time when I need something like super quick because, we have a graphic designer, but sometimes I just want to flip something right away and it's so easy.
It is so easy. And I think they even have nonprofit rates. They're free, but you can get their pro version, and it may even be free for nonprofits or at a super discounted rate. So definitely check that out as a great resource.
Awesome. Okay. So you've got your kind of boilerplate, you've got your basic overview of your company, you've got prompts for everybody, for every platform and images. Is there anything else that needs to be in this kind of overall general branded kit?
So those are really the key pieces that I would put in. I would also consider, if you have events coming up, if you have key major events or key, and whether those be in person or online events, I would recommend putting those in, and you can always refresh this kit, right? So perhaps you refresh it every year, every 6 months, and I would put key dates for the year. And even, I would promote, you could have a tweet that promotes one of those events if it's ready to go live. And so that would be one other piece I would put in. And I would say that about covers it. You may have other recommendations of things that you've seen or that you've done within your promo kits, which I'd be curious to hear about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have anything additional to add, because I do think, like you mentioned earlier, this needs to have a very specific purpose so that it's really easy. You don't want people wading through like 30 pages of stuff to find the thing that they need to promote. The only other thing that I would say is, don't get stuck in trying to make it fancy. It doesn't have to be like down and dirty, like, whatever. If it's a Word doc with a Google link with a link to a Google Drive where the photos are, whatever it is, make sure everything's titled clearly. But it doesn't have to be this like crazy designed, beautiful PDF,
Yeah, no, absolutely. It doesn't, because ultimately people aren't going to care what it looks like as long as it's easy to do. Right. It goes back to, this needs to be easy. And one thing I thought of just now that I also like to include, for some of that grassroots boots on the ground awareness, if you're not necessarily doing social media, which I know we're focused on social media, but I think there is a time and a place for that grassroots advocacy. Having like a flyer that people can print or a postcard that they can print, that they can drop off at their local coffee shop if they're willing to put flyers up. I mean, that can be another nice way to get people involved who maybe aren't as inclined to post on their social media, but would like to support and promote. So that's one other component that I would consider including.
No, that's great. Well, and that could also be graphics people could email out to their friends and family as well that might not be on social media.
Totally. Oh, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. Here we are again. Okay, I'm like forgetting all of the pieces of my promo kit. I'm remembering them as we go here. But
all good.
An email template for people to just cut and paste to send to their family, friends, and colleagues, and that can be with an overview of what the organization is, why you support it, and then calls to action for ways that they can get involved. And you can leave some space for them to customize. And I recommend you putting most of it in, but perhaps you leave a highlighted space for them to add why they choose to support this organization and how they're involved. And so that's another way, again, and to your point, for people to then email and send it out.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier kind of, you have this kit together, you might refresh it every 6 months, but it's, pretty solid. And that there might then be kind of a spinoff for other things that you might want to have like a separate campaign for, like maybe an annual fund or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's going to include a lot of the same elements, but this is going to be, if you're trying to run some sort of, to your point, an annual fund giving campaign, or perhaps it's an awareness campaign. The promo kit is a great way to get your message out. Again, I think that anytime you run a campaign, you should try to have a unifying hashtag. This can be the same hashtag that you've developed for your organization. It really all depends on on what you're trying to achieve. And so I would be careful about mixing too many hashtags. But like, for example, the 50 cents for 50 million campaign, that's really not something that we would use at the American Autoimmune Disease Association as our core hashtag, but it made a lot of sense for the campaign that was being run to raise awareness and funds. So again, you have that hashtag, you have the core messaging of the campaign specifically in there. And then you have key dates for anything that's happening. If you're going to have a big fundraiser, if you are hosting a seminar, whatever it might be, having those dates in there. One thing that I like to do when I'm running a campaign, and this sort of depends on what social platforms you're on, but I think live social media engagements like a Twitter chat or an Instagram live or a Facebook live can be a really great way to engage your audience around this messaging. And so including details on those types of online events and ways that people can get involved. And again, you're going to put that promotional flyer in. You're going to have the pre-composed emails that people can send out to families, friends, and colleagues. The signs they can snap a picture of themselves with, and then those pre-composed social media text and graphics. So a lot of the same things, but you're just honing in on one specific campaign you're trying to focus on.
So now, would you also include in this one, especially like, let's say it's leading up to your big gala or your annual fundraiser or something, would you kind of put targeted dates like, hey, between this date and this date, we recommend you share this information. And then a few weeks later, so that people could share multiple messages leading up to it. And maybe they get a little bit more direct and to the point, like last call for tickets or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. So giving them time brackets of when it would be appropriate to post which posts is great. And ensuring that they are all, they understand the timelines, because you certainly don't want somebody posting last chance for tickets 2 months before the event. No. Now, the other thing that I would say is to make sure that you also can create a day where you ask everybody to post on one specific day. So there could be a way for you to like really generate a lot of buzz if you say, hey, we're all going to post to raise awareness or to really drive the message home on June 26th at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And so and some people will do that, some people won't, but you may get quite a bit of buzz if you encourage everybody to post at the same day, at the same time, on one push.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just about communication and training your audience or training your volunteers or whoever is kind of helping push this and making it easy. And I feel like, while this might seem cumbersome and overwhelming to put this together, like you should. I'm trying to not say the word should as much, but it would be beneficial for your organization to come up with these timelines and to put this work together ahead of time for you anyway, because you should see, I just did it again. You'll be posting on your social media all of these things as well. And so I guess I would just encourage you to do this work ahead of time, and then you can share it with your volunteers, but then it's all done for you as you move through into that launch and promo period as well.
Yes, absolutely. And so it is definitely, this is something that for both your organization, generally speaking, and then any types of concentrated big campaign efforts you're trying to run, I really think these kits make a huge difference and are really a great resource to have on hand. And once you've done it once, it's easy to replicate from there. And also your network comes to expect it. And so they'll be waiting for it and they'll be excited to have it because it really makes it easier on them to share, which is important because that's the way that you're going to motivate them to do so.
Well, and how many times have you been engaged with an organization and they don't ask you to do anything and you don't really know how you can support? So like, what a great way to empower people to be able to support you in a way that maybe they financially can't, but they have an audience and they can share it. Or, there's so many, it's such a great way to keep your audience engaged with you and supporting you however they can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, one thing that I will mention as you think about some of these campaigns, if you wanted to level up, right? And this is a great starting point to work with folks who are already engaged in your network, your board members, your volunteers, your supporters. I do think there is a really special place for nonprofits to be working with some of what we call influencers out and about on social media. And if we have some time, I'd love to chat with you about that too. Yeah. So there in the healthcare space, which is of course where I sit, there are a lot of what we call patient influencers. So patients who identify with a specific condition. So I have a few different autoimmune diseases, and I will actively talk about that online. I have a following, and I will use that following to promote work that ARDA is doing. And so ARDA, the American Autoimmune Disease Association, we can reach out to some of those other patients who we know in our network who maybe they're online, or I'm sorry, they're not maybe in our network yet, but they're online. We know they're talking about living with their autoimmune condition. They are really primed and ready to help promote ARDA because they have an inherent connection. They are going to want to be a supporter of that. And so what I recommend is looking for whatever space you're in, looking for the activists in your space and seeing who they are, do they have an online following, and reaching out to them to say, hey, we'd love to find ways to partner with you. And influencers often they charge money to do partnerships, but they're not going to do that for a nonprofit. Right. A lot of them want to actually give back, and you're offering them a great way to use their platform for good. And so figuring out ways that you can work together, and that promo kit that you've developed, that's something that you can easily send to these influencers and say, hey, we'd love to work with you. Here's some of the ways that we talk about our organization. This is a really easy way for you to cut and paste and share with your audience. Feel free to make it your own, but this would be a huge help to us. And so, that's looking for the activists. The other thing I'll say is to get creative and think outside the box when it comes to influencers, because in some cases, it'll be really clear cut that there are activists out there who have a following who are a match to partner with your organization. In other cases, there could be more nuances. And let's take, for example, if you're an organization who is working to end domestic violence, there definitely are activists out there who have a following who are engaged in this work. But think about tangentially the type of person who would be interested in volunteering for an organization to end domestic violence. And the first person in my head that comes to mind is empowered women and female leaders and female entrepreneurs. And so are there female entrepreneurs that have a following that you can reach out to online who might be interested in championing your cause and leveraging their network to make an impact and raise awareness about your organization? And so, this is certainly sort of next level. I think that you've really got to get your promo kit in place first and feel really comfortable with that and feel comfortable on social media before you start taking these steps to integrate influencers. But the influencers can be a really great way once you've already leveraged your network to take it to the next level.
Well, and I think, before people are just freaking out about, how am I going to go after famous people or whatnot, because we see the campaigns like ASPCA has, celebrities in it, or you see like Boys and Girls Clubs and Big Brothers and Big Sisters where they take their alumni that have come through the program and they run campaigns with them. It doesn't have to be a huge celebrity. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, like if you're a local nonprofit serving a local audience, it could be like a council member or, a business leader in your community. It doesn't have to be massive.
Absolutely. That is such a great point. Because keeping in mind that even a couple thousand followers can make a real difference. So these don't have to be the people with millions of followers. We're talking, we call them micro influencers.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a couple thousand, 10,000, 100,000, they have influence and they can reach a lot of people, but they're accessible.
Yep.
They're not like a celebrity that you're going to have to go through their press agent or their manager to and strike some sort of deal to work together. It's really not like that. And you can find these people by going online and searching different hashtags that are relevant to what you're doing. And then again, thinking outside the box about the type of person who might be aligned with the work that you're doing.
Yeah, we've actually worked with a private school that used alumni to target kids so that kids would talk to their parents about wanting to go to that school.
Oh, fabulous.
So it's like a peer-to-peer thing,
Yeah.
But them reaching out to their audience about how they love it. And then, So there's lots of different ways that you can use people, but I think that's a great next step. And I think the nice thing about getting in with influencers of whatever level is that amplification just happens so much faster.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And so you want to be strong with your base. You want to have your base engaged before you go out and you start talking to these influencers. But yeah, it's going to accelerate your reach really quickly. And it's going to help you bring new people into the fold, new donors, new volunteers, new supporters, more buzz. I mean, it's all positives all around. And again, these influencers generally are pretty excited and receptive to creating for good and making an impact back. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah. So there's one last thing I want to touch on before we kind of wrap this up. And that is, I know, in the nonprofit space, time is money, creating material, social media, all this stuff. And, when it comes to marketing and nonprofits, I feel my experience has been, everything is questioned. Like, are we doing this? Are we making money? Is this actually helping us hit our goals? Are we, achieving what we need to achieve? I mean, it's like that in every business, but I feel like doing marketing in a nonprofit is an added level of questioning. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, if you've got all these people testing, like, what kind of metrics do you think people should be looking at to see if the effort that they're putting into, getting their audience to speak on their behalf and going after influencers is working?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's a couple of things you can do. I think that, first of all, just on a baseline level, if you are launching social media channels, tracking the number of followers that you're getting on that are signing up to follow you, and also the engagement. And every platform, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they all have ways for you to track engagement pretty easily in their analytics section. And so tracking that to make sure that you have strong engagement. And I would say engagement is truthfully more important than number of followers. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that pretty consistently. Yeah. And then I would also recommend tracking links. So if you build out these promo kits, any link that you include that goes back to your site, make sure it's tracked. And you can do that through things like Google Links or Bitly. There are a couple of different ways where you could shorten a link and basically be able to track how many times it's being clicked on. And so that can be a great way for you to see, okay, this is how much engagement we're getting from the promo kits. Or when you launch the promo kits, looking at the rate of how much did your followers increase by, how much did your engagement increase by, and so tracking it pretty closely once you launch it, and then again keeping an eye on it as you refresh.
Yeah, and I also think if your call to action is a donation, having that field on your donation page that asks, like, were you referred by somebody, or like, why are you choosing to make a donation, or where did you come from? Asking that question as well can be super helpful.
Yes, that's a great idea. That's perfect. So I think looking at all of those together can be really valuable.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else that we should be sharing or that people should be thinking about when putting their promo kits together that we might have missed?
we've covered it all. I'm always happy though to answer questions. Feel free to share I know my information and my LinkedIn and social media will be linked in the show notes. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me if there's anything I can ever do to be of help as you're developing out your campaigns or your promo kits. I think that this is a great starting point. My advice, my last piece of advice would be not to be intimidated by it. It can feel like uncharted territory and it can feel scary, but it's really, really not as scary as you think. And if you start small and build out your first promo kit, it's going to be really easy from there moving forward.
Yes, don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
We do that with why? It's like we get in our own heads and we always overcomplicate everything.
Totally. Yes, exactly. And it doesn't need to be, like you said, doesn't need to be the most beautifully designed thing in the world. A Google Drive link will suffice.
Yeah. Well, Lilly, thank you so much for joining me. I think this was great. Lots of good, tangible tips that people can take away, no matter what level of what level you're at with your marketing in your business. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. And thank you to all the nonprofits out there for the great work you're doing. I'm always amazed when I learn about new nonprofits and the impact that they're making. There's so much happening out there. And I'm glad that they have people like you, Sammy, to help guide them through the process.
It takes a village.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was an amazing episode. Lilly did such a good job at bringing to light all of the things that we need to start these campaigns and, up-leveling using influencers or micro-influencers, which is a fantastic way to continue to grow your base and grow your audience. You can check out all the resources and more information about Lilly at thefirstclick.net/podcast. We have all the show notes there for all of our episodes, including links to the resources talked about here. But for now, I hope that you'll subscribe wherever you listen so you don't miss out on a single episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.